You went to Cambridge and you studied anthropology and archaeology. Were you ever going to be either?
No.
No. So what about a comedian? Was that an ambition, or, you know, we know why you first got up on stage, to impress girls.
Right.
Good reason. But what about the comedy element of that? I mean, when did you realise that the review and that was going to be the sort of direction that you took?
Well, there is. I think anybody who is any comedian or comic actor would almost certainly agree that there is an enormous visceral pleasure in making people laugh. It is an incredibly gratifying thing for probably terrible psychological reasons.
I mean, I wondered if it was
some
the most
need that I really ought not to have.
And was it the most rebellious thing you could possibly have done as well? You described the household that you grew up in. I mean, to then become a comedian. That's pretty bad.
Well, yeah, but I think of at the same time, I think of my family as being, my family are funny. My parents were funny in a very strict Presbyterian way. It was dry. It was very, very dry. But they were definitely funny, and to make them laugh was an enormous pleasure. They made me laugh, which was a great pleasure. I think there's something... there are very few things like it, I think, in terms of connecting one person and another, than to share a joke, to laugh at something, or suddenly have that moment of seeing the world in the same way.
And was there a sense when you were at, I'm dragging you back to college,
right,
if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Was there a sense when you were at Cambridge and in Footlights that this was a kind of radical, that these were great days, that this was something very special that was being created? You were, I mean, there was immense talent there. You know, it was a particularly vintage period, wasn't it?
I don't know. That's not for me to say.
But have survived and carried
they've done
on.
All right.
Yeah.
They've done
all right. Yeah.
But
Emma
nobody
Thompson,
thinks.
Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie.
Well, but nobody thinks of their own life in that way. It's only other people's lives that look as sort of preordained. Well, obviously that was going to happen, and when you put those things together, that's going to happen, and obviously that would happen. But of course, your own life doesn't unfold that way. It's as much a result of random choices or mistakes even, or people you happen to meet, or something you happen to say that leads from one thing to another.
So did you never make a choice to be an actor?
No. I still haven't, actually. No, I didn't. In fact, I was only doing that really by accident, because I went to the university to row. That was my first sort of love. Row, R-O-W.
Yeah.
There is only R-O-W.
Yes, no, but thank you for spelling it, just in case I was struggling.
And I got glandular fever, and I was not able to do it. And obviously, I wasn't going to do archaeology and anthropology, God forbid. So I wound up doing the Footlights sort of by mistake, almost. And it's been just a succession of mistakes, or not mistakes, but...
Triumphs, some might say.
Some might. I would not be one of them.
So what was it about your relationship with Stephen Fry that sort of made that partnership seem a viable one when you left college? Or again, was that just opportunity flung in your path and grasped?
Well, that was one of the luckiest days of my life, obviously to meet him. Although, I say luck, actually that was an example of decision-making, because I went out and recruited him. I was made president of the Footlights, and I wanted a very particular kind of gravity. I wanted a sort of grown-up show, not a jolly song and dance show. And Stephen, at the time, although he was only 19 or 20, had cornered the market in playing decrepit monarchs. Because Stephen was 70 at the age of 20. And he had this wonderful bass voice, and he looked very severe, and there was a sort of darkness about him, which I found immensely appealing. And so I went to him and I said, I want you to be in this show. And she'd never done anything like that before. And that was a very good decision on my part.
That's the first time I've heard you congratulate yourself. And on the bits of comedy in House. That was the second moment.
Well, which I was not taking credit for. I just thought it is a funny show.
But it was your performance. But you said that Stephen cornered the market in Monarch, in the sort of Monarchs. But you cornered the market in really idiotic upper-class twits. I mean, that became your... It did, didn't it, for a while? Did you get sick of it after a while? Because you were totally brilliant. I'm sure people kept wanting the same thing over and over again. And I had this little theory that actually, in order to break away from it, the only thing to do was to sort of head to the new world, because you were so successful at it.
Well, if I allow that's true, what a pompous way of starting. There was certainly no plan to if that's the way it turned out, then I'm incredibly lucky. Well, I am incredibly lucky. Plainly, I am. But that wasn't actually the plan. I wasn't thinking I'm going to go and reinvent myself.
No, I'm sure. But I wondered more if, after all those years of success, which I've moved swiftly past, whether there was a sense that you wanted to do something more, because I presume that you would not want to be stuck in a rut or repeating yourself. I presume that there must have been a sense of, I'd like to do something. I don't know what it was.
Yes, maybe, but that presupposes that actors are masters of their own destiny, which they are so not.
But you're masters of your own desire, whether you can make it come true or not.
But your desire is just a spinning wheel unless it has a gear with which to engage in the form of a script or a project or a character that is provided by other people.
Yes.
So actors...
So in your heart... Were you hoping that a script might come?
I have no heart, by the way. That's my big confession, is I have no heart. But in the place where other people keep their heart.
Was there any sort of desire to move into a different sphere of acting or of drama?
No, I don't think so. It was much more specific and particular than that. I didn't even read the whole script of House. I read, I think, 4 pages. And I instantly thought, oh, I know what he's after here. I felt like I knew the writer, and I know what he's going for, and that's a really interesting thing. But at that point, I didn't assume that it was the lead character. I thought he would be some peripheral misanthrope who would just sort of, come and be caustic for a couple of minutes and then disappear. I didn't realize that would be the character. But I felt like I was drawn to those 4 pages, and those 4 pages alone, and I thought, I know what he's going for, and I think I know how to do this.
But it was a radical gear change. It was, and it does, if you look, I've been thrown by having both sets of clips run almost back to back, because it would have been much easier to talk about your comedy career having watched the comedy clips, and then talk about your drama having watched the drama clips. And actually what it does is it highlights the difference between the two, which is quite extreme. And
I suppose it is, yes. But there's a natural... In some ways, there's a natural progression, I suppose, in as much as, I never did stand-up, have never done stand-up, and could never do stand-up because I find it utterly terrifying, and I'm in awe of people who can do it. But sketch comedy, I think, it's a young person's game. You are, generally speaking, you're making fun of figures of authority.
Establishment.
Of the establishment. When you reach the age, as I have now, being older than most of the cabinet, or being old enough to be, an archbishop or a judge or something.
Parts will be flooding in.
It becomes a different thing. Your sort of sketch brain becomes less relevant, or at least it has less. It's not doing quite the same thing as it was when you were an irreverent 20-year-old. Doing impressions of the school teacher or whatever it might be, however it might start out.